Eternity's Shadow by E. Thomas Canton. Copyright 2024 E. Thomas Canton. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic or mechanical, including photocopy, recording, or by any information storage and retrieval system, without written consent from the publisher. Credits. Voices by MURF.com. Sound effects from www.freesoundslibrary.com. And additional sound effects from www.zapsplat.com and pixabay.com. Music by www.zapsplat.com and IB Audio. The famous ice world, as it had become known, has been confirmed by two separate teams of archaeologists as Earth 245,987. Home to a Bronze Age civilization, it had been the victim of genocide during the Great Interdimensional War. The Ulrich-packed Earths had used this world to test their Higgs bombs with devastating consequences, not the least of which. Helen Schaefer. Octavia Wilde, The Definitive Biography Volume 1. Footnote. Great Interdimensional War. The war began 5 years before the Council of Earths formed, when the Prime Minister's residence on Earth 5 became the victim of a terrorist's bomb. Retaliation soon followed, pulling in every known Earth. In those days, they could not construct portals between worlds large enough to allow large groups of people through. Instead, it became a war of small units, sabotage, and assassinations before escalating to cells using weapons of mass destruction. Cities of millions became cinders in the flash of an atom. Entire Earths became radioactive, taking them decades, and even centuries, to recover. Some never did. Starvation soon followed on those Earths. This began a refugee and humanitarian crisis unparalleled in the multiverse. The darkness had seeped through the aperture like smoke through a vent. I turned to be certain that Brooke followed. Instead, I saw her take what looked like a mobile phone out of a charger on the side of the CCP. Once in her hands, we ran to the aperture. She referred to it as a gizmo thingy. What this gizmo thingy did, I'd no idea, but she thought it important enough to risk her life for. I'm sorry, but I have to stop the narrative here for a second. I feel silly referring to the gizmo thingy as a gizmo thingy. Since she didn't see fit to give it a proper scientific name, I'm stuck calling it that as well. Instead, I'll call it the GT device. The aperture opened in front of us, and we were through in a flash. The wind cut through us like shards of glass. We'd emerged on the outskirts of the ruins of an ancient city constructed of ice. I marveled at the spectacle before me. The harmony of shapes and the infinity of tonal blues expressed a visual symphony unlike any melody my eyes had ever seen. All too soon, the barren streets and forgotten places morphed into a postmodernist conception of isolation and despair. Odd-shaped ball-like objects lay scattered all over the ground. What are they? Brooke picked one up and consulted the GT device.
I don't know. They're combining carbon, amino acids, and...
Brooke's voice faded. She examined the dark, malformed globs. She squinted her eyes and tilted her head for a moment as she read her device. Horror flashed on her face as she dropped the glob. What is it?
We have to leave here soon.
We moved on without speaking. Many of the buildings lay devastated in the streets. What happened here?
Don't know. Think we can rule out global warming though. From what this thing's telling me, it might have been nuclear.
Nuclear? I asked. These people don't look like they had the technology.
A large radioactive meteor, maybe.
She said, turning to me.
You knew she was in there, and you said nothing.
Not prepared for such an abrupt change of topic, I stumbled through the only honest explanation I could give. There was nothing I could do. She was in interrogation.
You're a government minister, and you're telling me you couldn't do anything for her.
My priority was to get you out before you got caught.
Getting Fen out was the priority. Without her...
I'm sorry.
At least we'd be together now.
With that, Brooke turned away with the GT device held in front of her like some sort of high-tech divining rod. I felt for her. How could I not? I had lost nothing. My mother had passed, and my father had died during the pandemic 5 years before. I had no wife or children, and the hours at work weren't conducive to developing personal attachments. But Brooke's entire life turned upside down when Fen died. She led us through what appeared to be a temple. The cavernous interior held the remains of monstrous ice sculptures. Serpents, demons, and phantasms stood on pedestals, forever frozen in time, the saints of a long-lost religion we knew nothing of. An altar stood at the front, stained red where the heat of warm blood had caused hideous deformities to the ice.
There should be a door down here,
she said, leading me down a set of ice stairs. Why is everything made of ice? I asked myself as I tried to not fall down the stairs. Brooke didn't respond. Instead, she removed the quantum key from her sweater and inserted it into the door lock. When it opened, we ran into the glass tunnel all the way to the opening aperture. We saw we had emerged far above the CCP, with a cloud of darkness hovering on the bridge between it and the interface. I stepped back away from the abyss and took several deep breaths. I have to remember to never look down. Brooke took her GT device and entered a numeric sequence into its keypad while aiming it at the CCP below us. She looked left to the aperture beside us in anticipation as she placed the device back on her belt. Beside us, the neighboring aperture opened. Brooke climbed onto the thin edge, leaned over and reached out. She jumped before I could stop her. My attempt to prevent her from hurtling herself over the edge had left me on my stomach with my head and upper chest through the aperture. Don't look down. Don't look down. Too late, I'm looking down. I took rapid, deep breaths as I stared down into eternity. My heart pounded with a relentless rhythm I couldn't control. Turning to my left, I saw Brooke dangling on the edge of the other aperture. Pushing myself back into the tunnel, I saw she had climbed through the aperture, gesturing for me to follow. I can't do this. Yes, I can. No, I can't. As quick as I could, I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and jumped. A split second later, my sweaty hands held the edge of the aperture in their grip. Struggling to pull myself up before I lost my hold, I saw the cloud of darkness shoot upwards. My hands trembled and slipped little by little until I held nothing. I didn't fall. Why didn't I fall? I looked up to see Brooke struggling to hold onto my arms. The cloud nipped at my heels.